Says on such an important event. I am so happy and glad to be moderating this panel. I believe I share a background with each and every one of you. I am from Uganda and I'm happy to see my president. You're welcome. And I am an administrative assistant. I worked at UMass in administration and I have worked as a scheduler for the McCormack department. So Africana Studies was under my supervision. So I'm glad to see you. And I'm glad to see you, Professor John, from New York University, from Africana Studies as well. You're welcome, and I am honored to be your moderator today. I will start by asking
of America. With a lot of the formation for the British Army, Black Panther Party, and a few other formations. But that's my foundation. I'm an African, completely, no adjectives. And I'm trying to make that clear. I live a life of freedom on that. Those are the only choices we have. Thank you very much. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jabulani Saint Amon Miguel. I was known as Bobby Wine. It's unfortunate that my music stage name has overtaken my real name. I'm a music artist. And as many of you know, in my generation and generations younger and older, musicians tend to take a nickname. So I took a nickname, Bobby Wine. Of course, later on I regretted I wish I took a more African sounding nickname. But never mind, you can call me Bobby Wine. I'm an activist. I don't want to call myself a politician, but I'm involved in politics. I've run twice for president in Uganda. I come from Uganda, a nation that got independence in 1962. But we have never had a peaceful transfer of power from one leader to another. Being not as an exilee, but technically I'm an exile here in America and across the world. I continue to agitate for the freedom and unification of Africa, but most importantly, for the respect of human rights and democracy. I'm very honored to be here, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Vandermeer, and I'm a professor in the Africana Studies Department over at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. I have to say, speaking of exile, I feel like I've been in Boston in exile from New York for almost since the drug war. But I also I was one of the first students in the Afro-American Studies Department right here at Northeastern University when it was founded in 1973. The Afro-American Institute was our home. It was something that was open, all night, where we argued, we played games, we fight, we organized against the administration and around popular issues that was happening during the time. And so for me, I ended up going to UMass Boston, where I'm at now, fighting the good fight. And as we know, there's a war against Africana studies. In fact, that's part of the war against Black people, and so that's why I'm here.
In the name of Allah, beneficent and merciful, I bear witness to the oneness of God, and I bear witness to the oneness of this pathetic community, from Abraham to Muhammad. I thank Almighty God Allah for raising up the most honorable Elijah Muhammad here in the wilderness of North America to teach Black people who were robbed of the knowledge of themselves back into the knowledge of themselves. I thank Allah for leaving with us my leader, teacher, and guide today, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. With their names, I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Student Minister Randy Muhammad. I'm the minister of Muhammad Mosque number 11, having to serve the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I am also the founder of Torchlight Recovery, Inc. We run the only Black owned and operated recovery support center in the state of Massachusetts and Recovery Cafe. I just want to say that I'm honored to be on this panel with my esteemed brothers here. I'm humbled and looking forward to a beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much. And we can start. The first question is, can you please define pan-Africanism? What does it include? Can you please define pan-Africanism? What does it include?
My definition is very simple. It is the unification of African peoples worldwide. No question, again, no adjective, no qualification. The unification of nearly 2 billion people. Probably the largest nation on the earth. But because we are disunited, we appear to be the smallest nation on this earth. On the continent alone, there's 1.something billion people. And scattered across the Caribbean, Central South America, and the Americas. And with Asia, we have close to another billion diasporans. And we have failed to unite them around 3 elements: economics, politics, and culture. And I would add the 4th element, you call it spirituality, but I'd rather call it African sacred science, which you sometimes call religion. All people have at its core their concept of divinity, their concept of what makes them human, right? So that's what I call African sacred science. The economics, and that is the wealth in your environment. The politics, that's the management instrument for the wealth in your environment. And your culture, that is the socialization instrument for your environment. Those 4 elements should be the things that unite the African peoples worldwide into a one world nation of people. That I consider to be pan-Africanism. Thank you very much, Professor. I'm inspired by that. Before I say anything, I'll request you to understand me, because I view things probably in a more pragmatic way, being that I come from the continent and I live on the continent in real time. For me, I will not look at it in an academic way. And other than defining, maybe I'll prefer to describe what I see or what I have come to know and understand as pan-Africanism is precisely pro-Africanism. For Africa, looking out for Africa, but what Africanism? African weather, African resources, African minerals, or African people? It's diverse. Pan-Africanism, in my view, is supposed to be pro-African people, the people to begin with, then everything else comes in. Unfortunately, I must also mention that while we sing Pan-Africanism, this is the most abused term by us, but not for us. Pan-Africanism started out as a beautiful thing by our forefathers, the Osajefo Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, Patrice Lumumba, and all those. These were our forefathers that fought for independence. And I believe there was a time when they stood like we are standing today, when they gathered in these numerous cities, planning to go back. And indeed, they went back and pushed what was realistic Pan-Africanism, then to liberate Africa and ensure that Africa achieves self-determination. Unfortunately, over the time, it has changed again and again and again. My baptism name is Robert. I was named after Robert Mugabe. He was a great Pan-Africanist. He was a great revolutionary. But by the time he passed away, I did not want to call myself Robert. And that is why I prefer calling myself Bobby, because he had relegated the same. So many people have turned into that, including our own Yoweri Museveni, who was a great revolutionary, who spoke magic when he was my age. So Pan-Africanism today makes very little sense. Why? I mean, look at exactly what's happening in South Africa today, which is supposed to be the base of Pan-Africanism, which is the anchor, which is the collection of all our collective African efforts. In every single African country, Pan-Africanism was a sounding vowel. It was the word, it was the chant, while Africans were putting efforts together to go and liberate South Africa. Today, the black man is a foreigner, not only in South Africa, but everywhere else. I'm here in exile. I'm supposed to be in exile in Kenya or Zambia or Tanzania, but I cannot hide myself in Kenya because the dictator in Uganda is in perfect collaboration with the new incoming dictator in Kenya or Tanzania. So for an African man like me, the safest place is thousands of miles away in a land which is supposed to be an imperialistic land. So maybe, and I'm speaking for my generation, maybe this generation needs to find new terms that we will respect, that we will honor, and we live by. Nevertheless, Pan-Africanism is supposed to be for Africa, by Africa, pro-Africa. Thank you very much.
I want to remind you of something that Malcolm X once said. He said, if you take a puppy and you put it in the oven, it's not a biscuit. And so if you take an African out of Africa, they're not Negroes, right? They're not, anything else but African. And so I'm gonna stand on this. I'm probably more African than some other folk who's African, right? In fact, I represent one of the horrors that was perpetrated on Africa. The fact that I'm a descendant of the Ma'afa, the Middle Passage, in terms of the, made into chattel slavery, and separated, and disconnected, from Africa, and the fact that we had to fight to remain, to be the people who we were as Africans, and who created the ideas that's also centered around Pan-Africanism is very important, around that, and supported liberation movements around the world. We got to remember that this is the imperialist state. America is the imperialist state, right? And so you got to be very careful, about that. And so, and to your point, is that why is it that other countries are not giving you exile, right? It's because the imperialist state is not allowing. It's the same thing why when the U.S. can blockade Venezuela, or remove the president, blockade Cuba, and tell everybody, if you do anything, we're going to jack you up too. You understand? So we got to understand, that, and I'm going to be straight. Like when you're in exile, right, you got to be careful here. Malcolm was here. What happened to him? Dr. King was here. What happened to him? Right. You understand? Right. There wasn't some lone gunman that was behind that. Right? So, Pan-Africanism is about how we see the importance and the centrality of Africa and one Africa, right? How do we deal with the divisions that we have? Who created those divisions in Africa, And the point is that we got to recognize who our enemy is. What is the principal contradiction and not the secondary contradictions? And what happens to African people, we're running on the secondary contradiction. We refuse to see who the real enemy is in this country. I want to add this other point that Brother Smalls raises. I want to add the point is that the other part is military. If we cannot defend the ideas that we have, they're not worth having. I'm going to say it one more time. If we can't defend the ideas that we have, they're not worth having. And we got to be willing, I don't want to go off because I'm about to, but we have to be willing, right, not only to live what we believe, but also to die for what we believe in. Because the imperialist state has a lot of money, and they will put it before you like they put drugs before us before. And people will take that and forget about their own relatives. That's how we got here. You understand? So Pan-Africanism is about us. It's not only repatriation, it's rematriation. You know, for us to go back to that spiritual center that our ancestors had of us, right? Versus falling for the okie doke. And I'm gonna stop there.
When I think about that question, what comes to my mind is one of the lessons that we were given in the Nation of Islam by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He asked the question, why does the devil call our people African? And the answer is because he wants our people, our poor people of America, to think that the people in Africa are the only people that they have. And he wants us to believe that we are all different, right? When we think about that reality, when I look at pan-Africanism, the key is African, right? It's not pan-Africanism. So it's not necessarily just the land, but it's the people. And so we can't get caught up in a name, because as, you know, humbled to be here with Professor Smalls, I looked at all your scholarship on hidden colors, and part of what a lot of those documentaries revealed is that Black people are universal, right? And the term Africa is a newly coined phrase. The continent went by many other names, Akibulan, or Egypt, or other names that were known. And so, but push it further than that, we are a global people. So one of the other things that we are taught in the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad asks, who is the original man? And he says that the original man is the Asiatic Black man, the maker, the owner, and the cream of the planet Earth. But in that context, he's showing us that when he says Asiatic, he's not talking about the continent Asia, but he says that at one point, the whole planet was known as Asia. So you have Asia Minor, right? You have the Near East, the Far East what? The Middle East what? Right? And so the whole planet was once called Asia. And we, Black people, are the original people that came with this planet. And so we are indigenous to the entire planet. Right. And even if we look at the concept of the original people and the root of civilization being in Africa, but we took that original civilization and established cultures all over the planet. So this is why you can look at in Asia and there's pyramids. You can look in the Americas and there's pyramids. There's all of these great remnants of ancient civilizations that go beyond the current understanding of history that we're given in this Eurocentric society. So we are a global people. Now, when we come back to Pan-Africanism, is the idea that the people, Black people, the original people, right? Pan-Africanism, that we have to be for Africa, for the land, and that the land should be for the people. That we are the original people, and that we should come together collectively to benefit from the wealth, the resources of Africa, right? And that we, the Africans or Black people who are from the diaspora, have to make a connection back to the motherland, and that the motherland has to make a connection with the Africans throughout the diaspora or the original people, and pull our resources in unity so that we can all profit and benefit from those resources together. So that's what I believe it is.
Media and cultural diplomacy play in strengthening global African identity.
That's education, media, and culture.
Education, media, and cultural diplomacy.
Well, the first thing is to inform. You know, I have a phrase that's called history erases the mystery. History erases the mystery. If you don't know history, you're confusing someone else's mystery. And that's where most of us are. Each one of the brothers were given a piece of history, and Baba just gave a heavy piece of history. When we are talking about pan-Africanism, and we're talking about the word education, then every educational system in Africa and in every African community in Central, South America, North America, and Asia must be disbanded and thrown out. How can you educate a person by denying the ancestral experience of the person? Appropriate education is to be informed and instructed by the experiences of your ancestors. We are now being instructed and informed by the experiences of the genociders of our ancestors. And because it gives us some money, and because we can play the little technical games on how much technology we have, we become a part of the continuation of the genocide, both physiologically and spiritually, of the African peoples. And there's nothing you can do, you can't argue with that.